For everything, there's a proper time. Everything has its proper setting. There's a time for consoling, a time for healing, but there's also a time for pain. It may be a little too soon to even start with the positive, because there is no way that we can justify or explain such an event. But let's understand a little bit. Somebody asked me recently, how do I explain this to my children? What do we say about the loss of life? Somebody said, tell them that the Eibishter really loves these people and took them to be by him, close to him. Somebody said this to his child, and the child said, but I need my father close to me. So why would he do that? Turns out that that's not a very good explanation to tell children. God loved your father so much that he took him to be with him. Doesn't sound right. It also doesn't sound right to say they're in a better place. Now they're at rest and they're at peace. That's all very nice and good. But we're supposed to be alive on earth. We belong here, not there. So what are we supposed to tell children? Also, because of the COVID and so many people passing away, we had to rethink what exactly does it mean, the end of life? What does that mean? We never really stop to think about it. We don't want to think about it. But what does it mean? So people ask, is there really life after death? And there's all sorts of answers and discussions and books written. It's a silly question. It's a silly question. There isn't life after death. If you say that there's death, then there's no life. The point is, life cannot die. That's a very simple fact. A living being cannot die. Life can't die. Death can't live. Life can't die. The neshama is a living entity. It is life. How can life stop living? How can salt go bad? How can water be dry? Life can't die. So the neshama certainly doesn't die. And not only does it continue to exist, everything continues to exist in some form or another. When we say the neshama doesn't die, it means it doesn't stop being a neshama. It doesn't become a malach, it doesn't become an angel. It remains a neshama. And more than that, it remains the same neshama. The neshama of a person who is very strict after they pass away too. A neshama that was very happy and fun-loving, after they pass away, they stay the same. Their relationships stay the same. A father is a father, a child is a child. So I had an experience where I was in Mexico, and they told me that a young couple had a terrible tragedy. They're devastated. They used to be part of the synagogue. They would come to daven. They stopped coming. They were Shemesh Shabbos. They're not Shemesh Shabbos anymore. He used to put on tefillin. He doesn't put on tefillin anymore. And they spoke to every rabbi in town, and they don't want to talk anymore. They don't. They're angry. They're broken. They're shutting down. But they agreed to speak to me coming from out of town, and they're waiting for me at the hotel. I come to the hotel straight from the airport, and they're sitting there, and they tell me the story. They had a 6-year-old little girl, and she passed away very suddenly from an aneurysm. And they weren't home when it happened. The parents were not home. They showed me a picture of this little girl, an angel. So listen just to a few of the details that are really, the father said, I am angry. I am angry at God. And I'll tell you why, he said. You know why I'm angry at God? Because I love him. And he did this to me. Not I loved him, I love him. That's what makes me so angry. So what can you say? So I asked him, has your daughter visited you yet? He says, yes, twice. Obviously in a dream. I said, what did she say? She didn't say anything. She was just smiling to let me know that she's okay. So I asked him, why did she have to come twice? He didn't know. I said, she's trying to tell you two things. She's trying to tell you that she's okay, but that she's concerned that you should be okay. Because it really disturbs her that because of her, you stopped putting on tefillin. And because of her, you stopped keeping Shabbos. And because of her, you are suffering. I said, what you're doing wrong is that you forgot that you're a father and that she is your daughter. And what does a daughter need from a father? Instead of being a father, you became a griever. You became a permanent mourner. This is what your daughter needs. Be a father. Amazing. He said, should I put on the tefillin now or should I wait till I get home? A daughter remains a daughter, a father remains a father. That's what we mean that the neshama continues to live. The same neshama with the same relationships, with the same temperaments, with the same personalities, only from a distance. He went back to being a father. And then the whole family healed. So what exactly is death? The neshama does not die because it can't die. A living thing can only live. That's what it is. So then maybe death means that the body died. Well, the body was never really alive. The body borrows life from the soul, from the neshama. When they separate, the neshama goes back to where it came from, and the body goes back to where it came from From dust you are, and to dust you return. That's the body, not the neshama. So the body was never really alive. So you can't say that a living thing is now died. It was never a living thing. It was a body made out of earth. So what died? The Torah tells us everything we need to know. That death means the time for the soul and the body to be together has come to an end. The only thing that has ended is the time. Because every soul, when it is born, is given a certain amount of time. When the time is up, the combination of body and soul is discontinued. The soul goes to where it came from, the body goes to where it came from. So what ended? Not life, not the person, not the relationships, not the memories. You ran out of time. And the Torah says it in an interesting way. Vayikrevu yemei Yaakov lomus. And we translate it very simply, the time for Yaakov to die had approached. But if you read it literally, it says, Vayikrevu yemei Yaakov lomus. The days of Yaakov were about to die. So the Medrash says, the days die? The Medrash says, yes. The neshama doesn't die. The days die. Meaning, you ran out of time. Time is up. But the neshama remains a neshama. Now, in addition to that, because of the COVID and the quiet and the free time that we had, people thought more deeply, people looked at life a little more maturely, and we came to another realization. Everybody believes that life is temporary and death is permanent. Ask anybody in the world. Life is very short. Life is very fleeting. You have to make good use of every moment because it's not going to last very long. Life is temporary. And death? Oh, death is forever. Everybody believes that. And it isn't true. It was never true. And it can't be true. Life is everything. Life is everything. Death is nothing. Meaningless. So how can it be that life, which is rich and meaningful and necessary, that's all temporary? Death, that is meaningless and unnecessary, that's forever. It's not true. Death is temporary, it's unnatural. We're not supposed to die. That was not the plan. We were not created to die. It's from the tree of knowledge. They ate from the tree, so there's a need for death. But for how long? A child needs to be told. A soul leaves the body and goes to heaven temporarily, and it is coming back. Every soul in heaven is comfortable and safe, but it can't wait to come back to the body. A Jewish soul does not want to stay in heaven, because in heaven you can't do mitzvahs. A Jewish neshama wants to do mitzvahs, not get rewarded. So heaven is a reward. But a soul doesn't want rewards. A soul wants to be able to serve Hashem and do his mitzvahs. And that you can only do in a body. And that's why the souls will come back to the body. The same body that it had before. And that's what Tchias HaMesim means. The resurrection of the dead, the neshama doesn't need to be resurrected. It never died. The resurrection of the dead means a new contract between the body and the soul that ended when the time was up. Now you get a new contract, the body comes back, the soul comes back together, and they go and continue to do mitzvahs like they did when they were alive the first time. And then they live forever. They'll never be separated again. Death is temporary, not only for the individual, but for the whole world. After Mashiach comes, there will be no more dying. Because what's the point? There's no point to it. So those souls who died this past year, the souls who died on Lag BaOmer, they're coming right back in a short time. It doesn't even pay to die now. There are some people who died 4,000 years ago. They had a long vacation. But today, Mashiach is coming, and the resurrection is going to begin, and the Tchias HaMesim is going to happen. So it's a very brief intermission where the soul goes to heaven and gets whatever it needs to get as a reward, and then it comes back. And like the father you just heard, he is absolutely certain that his son who passed away on Lag BaOmer, at the burial site of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, celebrating Reb Shimon Bar Yochai's yard site, there's no question that when they got to heaven, they were greeted by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. It would be not polite if he didn't come to see them. And once he comes to visit, they go straight with him to wherever he hangs out in heaven. They go past all the interviews and that whole process. They skip it all. They go directly with him because they had some special relationship with him, which is mysterious and awesomely holy, and we'll find out only after Mashiach comes. But there's no question that they had a special relationship with Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Now, people are a little bit shocked, not just by the death, but where it happened. They can't understand. In a holy place? Doing a holy thing? I don't understand what that question is. We read in the Torah that the two sons of Aaron were celebrating the conclusion of the Mishkan, the Chanukas Habayis, and they went into the Mishkan with great holiness and with great enthusiasm, and they died. Where did they die? In the holiest place on earth. What were they doing when they died? They were celebrating a holy event. Nobody asks, in the Mishkan? You die in the Mishkan? To die in a Mishkan is an extremely unique blessing. They didn't die because they were in the Mishkan. These 45 people didn't die because they were celebrating Lag BaOmer. On the contrary, their time came when their body and the soul had to go separate ways. Where did this happen? In a holy place, on a holy day, while they were doing something holy. When the soul comes to heaven, the first question they ask you is, where are you coming from? What were you doing? Where were you? Sometimes it can be embarrassing. You'd rather not say where you were. But these 45 souls, when they ask them, where were you when you died? So where was I? I was in Meron. It was Lag BaOmer. I was celebrating Epshemer Bar Yochai. That is a big schus. Aaron's sons, when they come to heaven, where were you? We were in the Mishkan. We were the first ones celebrating in the Mishkan. And as long as we're talking about that, where did the Rebbe have a stroke? In the holiest place in America. So I remember hearing that there was a chassid who came from Israel for Yom Kippur to the Rebbe many years ago. He was honored to open the Ark, to open the Aron Kodesh before Kol Nidre. He was on his way to the Ark, and he had a heart attack, and he passed away in Shul in 770 on Yom Kippur, on the way to the Aron, in the presence of hundreds of Jews and all the old people in Shul. This was an older man. All the old people in Shul were jealous. How do you arrange that? Who do you have to talk to? Who can you bribe to arrange to pass away on Yom Kippur in a shul by the Rebbe on the way to the Ark? Wait till they ask him where he's coming from. All the old people were jealous. But then I was there in 770 when another chassid passed away, but this time it was on Simchas Torah, in middle of the Hakafis. In the dancing, he passed away in 770 on Simchas Torah while dancing. And all the old people in shul said, whoa, that's even better than Yom Kippur. He danced right into heaven. So again, why people die, that's terrible. It's unexplainable. It should end. It should never happen. But where they died, that is not bad news. When they died, that is not bad news. Because the last minutes of life, every detail, every little thing becomes meaningful. Knowing that they are at an event that is holy, that must have given them so much courage. It's very interesting. You heard what the father said? They were not bloody. They were not damaged. Isn't that what it says about Aaron's sons? They died inside. They were not damaged on the outside. There's something very special about these people. So this is not in any way an explanation of why people die. People should not die. Death should end. It's too long already, been going on too long, and it's just not acceptable anymore. And we don't want to hear any explanations that it's forgiveness, and it's enough already. Death has got to stop already. But to wonder why die on a holy place? Well, where else? Why die at a holy event? Where else? How does a pure, innocent soul go back to heaven? On an innocent day, at an innocent event, doing something holy and innocent. What we need to do is we need to figure out what more we can do to bring an end to death completely. We know it's temporary, and we know it's very soon that it's going to end with Mashiach coming. Can we make it a day sooner? Can we bring it an hour sooner? It would make a huge difference in the world. 1 hour for all the people in the world is 7 billion hours. That's a lot of time. 1 minute for mankind is 7 billion minutes. That's a long time. So if we can bring Mashiach a minute earlier, a minute sooner, we would save the world 7 billion minutes of pain. Because everybody has their pain, their aches, their worries. So we should all think, which mitzvah can I enhance? Which mitzvah can I do more thoroughly, more carefully, more enthusiastically? And which mitzvah have I been waiting to do, but I haven't quite gotten around to it? Now's the time. Now, when every mitzvah can make such a huge difference, now is the time. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to change your whole life around. A mitzvah that maybe nobody even notices. But God is keeping score. And a little more holiness in the world, and death can be removed forever. So we want to bring Mashiach closer. We want to bring Mashiach now. We want to bring Mashiach immediately. This is the Rebbe's project. Everybody else says Mashiach should come soon, in our lifetime. We should live to see Mashiach. The Rebbe said, no, that's not good enough. Why are you so patient? Why are you so tolerant? It's okay with you that Mashiach should come in a year from now? Why? Because you're not in pain? But what about all the people who are? Is it okay with you that Mashiach should come a month from now? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be okay with us that Mashiach will come an hour from now, because that's an hour of suffering for 7 billion human beings. So, what can we do to bring Mashiach? One of the things we can do, everybody can do, because there's always room for improvement, that is to be a proud Jew. We've been hiding, and we've been humbled, and we've been ashamed, and we've been apologetic, and we're a little bit intimidated by the world that has not treated us very well. But that's gotta be healed. We need to be proud. We need to know that God is very proud of his people. Let me end with this little incident. Last year, Pesach, the first Pesach of Corona, it was very intense. People were very scared. Everybody was taking the lockdown very seriously. There's this man in Manhattan who was married to a non-Jewish woman. She passed away. They had no children, and he's completely alone. The night of Pesach, the first Seder night, it suddenly occurred to him that it's Pesach. He hadn't been paying attention. He's not the most observant. And Pesach didn't mean much to him. He didn't know that Pesach was coming. But on the night of Pesach, he was sitting in his apartment, and he said, whoa, today is Pesach, Passover. He got up and he went looking in his pantry. There was no matzah. He had no matzah. Not kosher Pesach matzah. He had no matzah. He found rice cakes, round rice cakes. He said, yeah, good enough. It looks like a matzah. He took 3 rice cakes and a bottle of wine, and he found the Haggadah from his grandmother's leftovers. You remember when Maxwell House Coffee used to put out a Haggadah? You don't have to admit that you remember if you don't want to give away your age. But Maxwell House used to give out a Haggadah. It was a tiny little thing, but he found it. So he sat down with the Maxwell House Haggadah, with his 3 rice cakes and his wine, and he tried to follow the instructions of the Haggadah, how to make a Seder. After Yontif, he calls me. He says, I want to tell you something. I didn't remember it was Pesach. I don't know how to make a Seder. I've never made a Seder. But it felt terrible to just be sitting there on the night of Pesach and not doing anything. So I went and I found rice cakes. And I tried to make a Seder. And I knew it was going to be a joke. I don't know what I'm doing. What am I asking myself for questions? But he says, I got to tell you, I was very surprised. It felt like somebody was listening. I was so amazed. I was so inspired by the story. And I was wondering, did he actually fulfill a mitzvah? The mitzvah of eating matzah? No, he didn't fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah. Did he fulfill the mitzvah of the 4 cups of wine? I'm afraid the wine that he used was not kosher. Did he fulfill the mitzvah of telling the story of the Exodus from Egypt? I don't think so. But the Baal Shem Tov would say, for sure, the Baal Shem Tov would say, his Seder brought God to tears. How could God not be bursting with pride? Here's a guy whose family is not religious. They were never religious. They never made a Seder. Nobody is going to criticize him if he forgets that it's Pesach. Nobody's going to ask him. His friends don't care. And if he does make a Seder, nobody's going to compliment him, and nobody's going to thank him, and nobody's going to respect him. Why did he bother? Why? And he had the sensitivity that only a great soul can have. It felt like somebody was listening. God was paying attention to his attempt at making a Seder. The Baal Shem Tov would say, absolutely yes. More than any other Seder in Manhattan that night, this man's Seder gave God such pleasure. After 3,000 years since God spoke to us at Mount Sinai, 3,334 in 2 weeks on Shavuos. So God asked Jewish people to observe Pesach 3,000 years ago. And now a Jew who had married out, who was never educated in Yiddishkeit, who didn't even know it was Pesach until the last minute, makes a Seder Isn't that amazing? Don't we deserve Mashiach more than any generation of the past? So there's no question that Mashiach is going to come to us, not as a special favor. We earned it. We deserve it. We brought it. We made it happen with our mitzvahs, with our devotion, with our commitment despite all odds. So we have to proceed with pride. We are God's apple, the apple of his eye. He is so proud of his people, and we are so humble that we think we're not worthy, we're not special, we're not good enough. We're an amazing people. And the event in Meron showed it again. Think about this for a second. If an event like that, if a tragedy like that happened in almost any other country, what would the reaction of the people be? I'm quite sure there would be riots. There would be mobs in the street, angry, frustrated, looting, burning down houses. Not in Israel. Look at all the videos. Look at what's going on in response to this tragedy. Young people getting together at the Kotel, in other places, singing songs of faith, singing Ani Mamin. There's no other people like the Jewish people. And the world is noticing. And the world is impressed. And the result of this tragedy is a huge Kiddush Hashem. The world is impressed. There is no one like the Jewish people. So we should go about performing mitzvahs, studying Torah, teaching our children proudly, the way the Rebbe taught us. Don't just light a menorah, light a giant menorah. What are we hiding for? We're the best thing that exists in this world. And we should share what we know and what we have with the rest of the world. So any Jewish woman you know, encourage her to light a Shabbos candle. It makes a huge difference for the whole world. Any man you know, encourage him to get a pair of tefillin. Don't wait for the Chabad guy to come and ask you if you're Jewish and roll up your sleeve. Get your own tefillin and put them on every morning like a proud Jew. Proud Jew. There's no question that will bring Mashiach closer. Mashiach comes closer, people will come back to life sooner, people will stop dying sooner, and the world will be a world that God is proud of. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal, it's questions and answers, it's conversation. It's really relaxed, it's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program. There's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us, take a look, click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.